What's up, YouTube? Zach's back with another attack. Today we're going to be starting a special series I like to call Watching the MCU to See If It's Poo. We're going to go in chronological order, and we're also going to include the TV shows, so there's going to be a lot to cover. But we're going to start today with Captain America, the First Avenger. Let me start off by saying I love seeing the Marvel role they do at the beginning of the movies and how much it's evolved through the different movies. I will also say that I have seen this movie before, so I'm going to be judging it a little bit differently than some of the TV shows and stuff that I've actually never seen before. For example, I've never seen Daredevil, really any of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've actually never seen Thor 2 either. So some of those could be interesting, but we're going to focus as much as possible on just this one, but I may throw in a couple of references to the other movies just to get my full point across. Now, some of you may be wondering why we're starting out with Captain America, the First Avenger, because in a way it's the last movie before the Avengers, but it also mostly takes place during World War II, so in that aspect, it is kind of the first movie chronologically. I was not sure if I should put it first or right before the Avengers, but in all actuality, it kind of has to come first because of all the history that it precludes before the Avengers. I really think that this is kind of a weird way to start the movie, honestly, because it doesn't jump right into the action, as opposed to Captain America Civil War and some other Marvel movies for sure, where it jumps directly into the action and throws you in to where you have to pay attention. This is kind of a slower start than a lot of different Marvel movies, but it is a good start to the movie in general, and it quickly throws you into the action here. But you see at the end what's going on with the beginning, so it works out, but I really wish that they would have just started here. I will also say that this is actually a really good scene because it identifies Hydra, for one, and for two, it does a lot of character development for Red Skull, which he doesn't have a lot of in this movie, to be honest. I wish that they developed his character a lot more and really made him a better villain, which Marvel does have a lot of issues with, but I still can't let it slide just because they do it in a lot of their movies. This scene's also really cool because if I remember right, keeping in mind that I'm going back and re-watching all of these Marvel movies to do these reviews, I believe that this is the first time that they actually introduced the Infinity Stones, this being the introduction of the Tesseract. I believe that this is the first reference to any of the Infinity Stones that we actually see within the MCU, which is about to hit its climax with Infinity Wars, which is when Thanos, the big bad of this whole arc since the beginning of the MCU, really hits its peak when he gets all of the Infinity Stones in the Infinity Gauntlet and tries to defeat the Avengers once and for all. One thing that does kind of start in this scene that I don't like is that there's a huge juxtaposition of technology within the World War II setting, and that really throws me off, seeing Nazis using advanced technology that even in today's day and age we don't have access to. And I mean, it's played out because S.H.I.E.L.D. has advanced technology, as does Hydra, and that's kind of the point, but at the same time, I feel like they're trying to give us a period piece, but at the same time wanting to utilize all of this advanced technology, and it really just kind of throws me out of the movie. I would have rather seen a more straight period piece and then built into the technology later. Especially when you see some of the later Captain America stories when he's freaking out about some of the technology that's in modern day, and it's like, didn't you see all of this crazy technology that was going on back in World War II? You shouldn't be freaking out over a cell phone or something because you had laser beams and stuff. But the special effects for Steve Rogers are incredible in this movie. That definitely looks like Chris Evans is really that small. And that's no easy feat, because he's really a big dude. I remember the first time I ever watched this movie, though, it was a little jarring to see the Human Torch being another Marvel superhero. But you quickly get used to it, and at this point, everyone's kind of used to Chris Evans being Captain America rather than the Human Torch. We're not even going to get into the Fantastic Four or the reboot, and apparently there's another reboot in the works, but that's a story for another day. This movie is actually one of the most inspirational movies within the MCU. I think it's really cool how Steve acts, and not only how he sticks to his guns about what he believes in as far as the country and his morals, but also how he doesn't let being small get him down. He keeps trying and trying to get into the military. No matter how many times he gets turned down, he does illegal things just to do whatever it takes to achieve what he really wants. Some of the other Marvel movies kind of have an issue with this. They focus a lot on PTSD with Iron Man 3 or depression with Doctor Strange, but this one's really motivational. It's less mopey, I guess. Here you can see the Doctor Strange suit. Or no, I'm sorry, it's the original Johnny Storm suit from the comic books. A few more side notes. It's really cool to see Tony Stark's father, as well as see Bucky Barnes from Arthur in the movie. I mean Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. It's a little weird watching this movie after knowing that and seeing what happens to him in the future, but it's also kind of a cool new perspective. And isn't it kind of weird how Howard Stark is the age he is in this movie, and Tony Stark's the age he is in all the other movies, and it's been 70 years? I mean, how old was Howard Stark when he had Tony? Some of these timelines just don't add up, but I can't fault him for that, I guess. Most of that's gotten from the comics. I love the subtle details in this movie. You can see the sign right behind Chris Evans that says it's illegal to falsify your enlistment records, which we know he's done several times. This is one of the better movies about showing things rather than telling them. Here's the motivational stuff I'm talking about.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
After seeing what happens to the alien in Guardians of the Galaxy, I am curious how he knows not to touch it with his hands. Seems like a lot of humans would just be excited by the sheer power of the Tesseract and immediately just go to grab it with their hands, and for some reason he knows not to. Agent Carter is a great character. I love how she got her own spin-off series. If anyone deserves it, it's totally her. Not that I've seen the series yet, but I'm really excited to actually check it out. She is a badass female character. Everyone was freaking out about Wonder Woman being the first female character who really represents badass females, and nope, Agent Carter did that. Not only is she a sheer badass, as we just saw, but she also is one of the most believable love interests in the entire MCU. Not to mention, Tommy Lee Jones in this scene really steals the limelight. Every scene he's in this movie is just amazing. This scene always kind of annoyed me because you'd think that the soldiers would give each other a boost and work as a team to let one man win instead of letting all of them lose. This seems like something that an army should be about, rather than Steve, who ends up just pulling the thing out and making the whole pole fall. That kind of seems like cheating. In the real heat of the battle, there's not going to be a way to do anything like that, and I feel like that just seems like cheating to me. You'd think one of the other soldiers would have done that if that wasn't cheating. Not to mention, Steve is a little bit cocky about it. Reasonably so, because the other guys are kind of jerks to him, but it seems more like Captain America's true spirit to me, to have gotten the flag and then continue doing the exercise with the rest of the soldiers just because that's the kind of guy he is. Some of the humor in this movie is really funny, but also a little bit subtle, which I like, actually. Here he pours some alcohol for him and Steve, and then ends up drinking it all because Steve has an operation the next day. Something that really gets a laugh, but isn't like obviously in your face funny in a way that Joss Whedon does. Not that the Joss Whedon kind of in your face comedy is bad per se, but it's just a little bit smarter humor. This is something you kind of gotta enjoy for what it is, whereas a line like, "He's adopted," in the Avengers, it had the entire theater laughing, but it's kind of a low blow, kind of obvious for laughs kind of thing. That scene's also kind of weird because it seems weird to me that the super serum soldier would make Schmidt into the Red Skull, whereas it just makes Captain America Captain America. Likewise, this scene is weird because I don't get why they don't just build the characterization of Red Skull up. I really want to have more character development with him. In the comics, he's Captain America's arch nemesis. He's his #1 villain, essentially. Unless you count Hitler, maybe, but even then he's so underdeveloped in this movie. And why is he hiding his Red Skull? They could have just made him Red Skull from the beginning, and I feel like there would have been a lot more development for his character throughout the entirety of the movie.
You have no idea how to talk to a woman, do you?
I think this is the longest conversation I've had with one. Women aren't exactly lining up to dance with the guy they might step on.
Wonderful weather this morning, isn't it?
Yes, but I always carry an umbrella.
Okay, the whole wonderful weather we're having. Yes, but I always carry an umbrella. That's almost as random as Bucky's whole thing with trigger words. It makes no sense why that's the thing.
Take off your shirt, your tie, and your hat.
That's the first time that Captain America's talked to a woman. I feel like that's the first time he's ever been asked to get undressed, too. Bet he didn't think it'd be by a man for the first time.
That wasn't so bad.
That was penicillin.
That was another moment of the smart, subtle humor. Do you guys really think that Steve could have heard them with all the noise of that thing going on? But, aside from that, this is another moment of motivation. Dun 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 dun! This is the moment that the special effects guys have been waiting for the whole movie. I'm sure that was a pain in the ass to have to do small Steve Rogers for the whole first 35 minutes or so of the movie. To be honest, this is probably the best action scene in this entire movie. Some of the other action scenes get a little cheesy, but this one's actually really well done. It's very believable, it doesn't overly rely on Steve's shield, and it does some great character development, allowing Steve to get used to his new powers, while still not having him be overpowered to the point where it's just unbelievable and gets too cheesy. Oh, what are the odds? After rewatching this scene, I'm actually kind of surprised that there haven't been more underwater scenes with Captain America. Seems like some of the other movies would have really utilized what this scene kind of sets up. And physics-wise, how do you throw somebody like that out of the water? I don't care how super you are. This scene shows that everybody already knows that he is the Red Skull, or at least Hitler does, so why is he hiding it again? Perhaps this is something that's explained in the comics, but as far as the movie goes, character development hasn't told me at all yet why he won't reveal to everyone what he truly looks like and what his true identity is. Seems like as a Nazi Hydra agent, he'd want to be as scary as possible. But apparently not.
Not all of us can storm a beach or drive a tank, but there's still a way all of us can fight.
Who else to fight like the man for what's right night and day?
Series E defense bonds. Each one you buy is a bullet in the barrel of your best guy's gun.
Sorry, I'm just a sucker for a good show tune. Here's another moment of subtle detail. You notice that Steve is drawing a monkey, which is how he feels here. Something you kind of got to be paying attention and put two and two together to be able to read between the lines on this one. I like little things like that.
The 107? What? Come on! Colonel Phillips.
Well, if it isn't the Star-Spangled Man.
I do like this part, but I'm kind of curious what would happen if it wasn't the 107 that had been injured. Do you think Cap would still go after them if Bucky wasn't possibly involved, or do you think that he would have continued with his mundane existence at that point? After all, he didn't really jump until after she specifically said the 107. I really wish that people like Pepper and Tony and Thor and his girlfriend were as good with their chemistry on screen as Captain and Agent Carter are there. And honestly, throughout this entire movie.
Anyone seen Rogers?
The Hydra camp is in Crossbow.
Hey, not exactly a Buick.
I remember when I was younger, I thought that that was product placement, but actually Buick made the tanks that the Americans used in World War II, so it actually makes sense that he would get in it and say it's not a Buick, because Germans didn't use Buick for their tanks. Good research on the writer's part. I'm pretty curious why they would pick Bucky of all people. It makes sense why he was picked for the Winter Soldier project, because they found him. But in this situation, they had all those other prisoners to pick from. So why did it just happen to be Bucky that they selected to go through this experiment as well? Mandatory epic separation shot. I know I've kind of drilled this point home, but why has he not been showing his face like this the entire time? It just makes no sense to me, especially if he's just gonna rip it off in the heat of the moment. Seems like everyone would be a lot more intimidated of him from the get-go if he had just stayed like this the entire movie. It's not really a surprise, there's not really a big payoff to it, so I don't understand, but I'll go with it. This is the part of the movie where it really starts to go downhill for me. They get this crazy technology such as his ship that it just isn't believable in the setting of World War II. Again, a lot of that comes from the comics, and it's something that they kind of had to include in the movie, but for me it really throws me out. Maybe it's just the way the special effects were done for it, but something about it just makes me wish that it was done differently. Mandatory epic jump into the explosion shot. My boy! Mandatory Stan Lee cameo.
I thought he'd be taller.
We are going to set a fire under Johann Schmidt's ass. What do you say, Rogers?
Looks like somebody already lit a fire under his face, if you know what I mean.
I see your top squad is prepping for duty.
You don't like music?
I do, actually. I might, even when this is all...
Are they singing Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes? Is that a classic song that the Army sang in World War II? That's new to me.
What do you think?
Yes, I think it works.
You see, how can you watch that and think that Wonder Woman was the first badass woman? Obviously, Agent Carter is taking some names. Of course, the action gets cheesy again. The special effects aren't bad, really, but it's just a little corny, honestly. Well, I will say it's not the corniest action sequence in the MCU, and it's slow enough that you can tell what's going on, It definitely could be improved. But I guess if you have to do a montage, this is the way to do it. But then again, you don't have to do a montage, so why not just do it in a better way in the first place? The physics are a little unrealistic here. While they're going down the zip line, you'd think that there'd be a little bit more sway to their bodies, but there's not. I think that the special effects have kind of improved as the MCU movies have gone on, and this is a good example of that. It's not bad, but when you're really paying attention to details, you can tell that it could be a little better. I think one thing that would help make the issue with the juxtaposition of technology and with the World War II setting less of an issue for me is if Captain didn't use the Tesseract-powered weaponry. I think once he starts using it, it loses a little bit of its charm for me. I want him to just stick to his shield or just his raw manpower. And that, my friends, is how the Winter Soldier was born.
Your metabolism burns 4 times faster than the average person. He thought it could be one of the side effects.
If his metabolism burns 4 times faster than the average human, doesn't that just mean he has to drink 4 times more than the average human? Shoot. I'd buy him a couple bottles of Fireball. Oh snap! How come every time you come around my London Bridge when I go down like... Oh, sorry, not the right time.
I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
I will say I do really like how this scene calls back to the beginning. It really draws back to how this movie's inspirational and how Steve hasn't changed a bit. There's another time when the action's kind of cheesy, the technology kind of gets in the way, and the movie all in all is just a little slower than I really wish it would be. It's not necessarily horrible, but I don't care about these random soldiers. They don't develop the random soldiers enough that I care about them, and I would rather just spend the time seeing Steve and Red Skull fight. And one more time for the record. Agent Carter's a BAMF. I feel like in real life, her getting to the back of the car like that would make it fall over the edge. But maybe that's just me. Plus, isn't chasing after airplanes kind of a movie cliche anyway? I really would have liked to see more fight scenes from them before this moment, kind of building up to this. A lot of the scenes where he's killing random soldiers and stuff could have been gotten rid of and replaced with Steve and the Red Skull actually fighting. Like I said, in the comics, it's basically Captain America's biggest villain. So why can't the movie show that a little bit more? That being said, this is a pretty cool scene. If not a little cheesy at times, but you gotta take it for what it's worth and enjoy the awesome aspects of it. Now is a good time to point out that the Tesseract actually didn't kill Red Skull. It kind of just sent him into space. So I think that with Infinity Wars, Red Skull's gonna come back. Whether it be just because they're in space, or if it's something to do with the Infinity Gauntlet and the Time Stone and the Space Stone being worked together. I don't know exactly how it's gonna happen, but I have a strong feeling that Red Skull is gonna be back. Numerous times in the comics, Red Skull was apparently dead, but he wasn't really, and you get the point. This is some of the best acting in any of the MCU movies. This right here is why Agent Carter got her own series. Haley Atwell and Chris Evans really have some great on-screen chemistry, great acting chops in general, and they really know how to make a scene believable. Not that other actors in the MCU don't, but this is just a great scene through and through. I think that would have been a perfect time to put in that scene from the beginning. I think it fits a lot better after that happens and you know the context of it. I'm sure you remember it from the beginning, but if it leads straight into this instead of just that few seconds of blackness, I really think that it would make a better impact. That being said, I think they do a great job transitioning into the present day for Steve Rogers. This whole scene is done really well too. The only complaint I would have with it is that it tries a little too hard to transition into the overall Avengers picture, and specifically into the first Avengers movie. But seeing as how in actual order of release, it was the last released movie before Avengers, I get that they have to kind of do that. And it does it well, so I won't fault it for that. Anyone else think that the ads in this scene alone can pay for the entire movie? I'm sure most of them are just from Times Square already, but still.
Look, I'm sorry about that little show back there, but we thought it best to break it to you slowly.
Break what?
You've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years. You gonna be okay?
Yeah, I had a date.
While the credits go, I want to give a few overall thoughts of the movie. I think that it's got some great aspects. It's got good action, good story. The action can be a little bit cheesy, but you'll have that. They're still getting used to the special effects, and it's still kind of early in the MCU. It's got subtle humor and details. And it's got great rewatchability. I mean, everything with Bucky and the Tesseract, now knowing that it's an Infinity Stone, all that stuff's great when you're rewatching the movie. The effects to make Chris Evans look small in the beginning are top-notch. I mean, I remember the first time I watched it, if I hadn't have seen him in other stuff before, I wouldn't even have realized that that's not how he actually looked. I probably would have thought that they made him look big for the rest of the movie. There are a few times in this movie where it's slow, a little bit boring perhaps, and they focus on the wrong things. I would have liked a little bit more character development for Red Skull and a little less action just for the sake of action, or killing soldiers just because it shows how evil the Red Skull is. That's not character development. That's just saying, hey, the bad guy's bad. It's like, obviously, we get that. That's the whole point of him being a bad guy. This isn't Wreck-It Ralph. He's a bad guy, so he's a bad guy, you know? But definitely my favorite thing about this movie is the introduction of Agent Carter and Steve Rogers' romance. One of the best love interests in the entire MCU up to today. And Agent Carter is definitely as good, if not better, than Wonder Woman. She's a huge and great influence for women in the superhero genre. Now, this is the first movie in my series of watching the MCU to see if it's poo. So, obviously this is going to be the number one for right now. As we watch the rest of it, I will rank them in order. Ultimately, we're going to see probably what the top 5 are. But I'll keep track of where they all rank in the overall MCU. So make sure you stay tuned for the next one. And of course, no Marvel movie would be complete without the end credits scene. So we'll get there. Make sure you remember all these guys, though. Anytime you watch a movie, a lot of people did a lot of work on it. YouTube videos, I mean, I'm the only one working on all these, but so many people put work into these movies, and most people don't think about that. They just think about the main actors or the director, maybe. But there's a lot that goes into it, so thank all these people mentally as you watch the movie. Stay for the credits or something, I don't know. Or don't, you know, it's up to you. But at least hit the subscribe button for me, because like I said, I do it all by myself. I'd like to see Chris Evans do this whole movie by himself, play all the characters, write it, direct it, film it himself. He could do the stunt costuming. He could do the makeup and hair design. The Millionaire I saw somewhere on there. I don't even know what that is, man. Anyway, let's get to the end credits scene. Does this say hydroscope telescoping? Hell Hydra! Scope. Hell hydroscope.
Trouble sleeping?
You here with a mission, sir?
I am.
Trying to get me back in the world?
Trying to save it.
And I'm gonna skip this part because it's basically just a trailer for Avengers. So we'll get there, I promise, guys. Be sure to check out my next video and hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment and let me know if you like this, if there's anything I can do differently. Just give me some feedback. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Alright, hang in there. I'm Zach, and I'll see you in the future.
I mean, swing.